I got so many questions on the SpaceX IPO. If I'm personally buying the IPO or not, do I believe it's undervalued, overvalued, and what kind of upside potential do I see on SpaceX stock over the next 5 years? I'm going to talk about all of this today, and I really hope you enjoy it as always. Now, am I buying SpaceX IPO? The answer is no. I've never bought an IPO in my life since I started investing, never bought an IPO. The reason why that happened is because I watched a video from Warren Buffett a few years ago, and he was explaining why he never purchased an IPO in his life. And he said whenever a company IPOs, they are picking the time to sell to you. So if you own stock in any company, okay, you want to pick the highest valuation possible, you're getting a good deal. This is when you sell your stock. So the reason why Elon Musk and all the insiders are selling them to you at 1.7 trillion in an IPO is because they're getting the highest exit possible, and they're getting, again, a lot of liquidity, and they're getting a very high valuation in general. This is why they're selling it to you at this specific moment, and this is why companies IPO in bull markets. Whenever we have a lot of euphoria, no one IPOs when the market is down 20% and whenever the sentiment is very, very bad. So instead, Warren Buffett says that he likes to pick the time to buy from them, and this is a better way to do it, which is to be in control. But generally speaking, whenever a company IPOs, Facebook, Twitter, most of them, after 1 year, the average drawdown is 54%, guys. 54% drawdown after 1 year. You could also look at the SPACs from 2021, Robinhood, SoFi, they all go up initially. Then for the next 2 to 3 years, they were down 40, 50, 60%. And now they're finally starting to move again. Because again, they only IPO once they believe they can get the highest valuation possible. But now you also have a pretty amazing CEO, Elon Musk. And Elon Musk does deserve a premium in any company he manages. And the question is, of course, how high of a premium, and how do we factor this into the valuation? Now, in terms of their total addressable market, they believe they have a $6 trillion TAM. They're already in space, which is 370 billion. Then they are in connectivity with Starlink, broadband, and Starlink mobile. This is 1.6 trillion. Then they have AI, which they believe is massive in terms of AI compute and potentially data centers in space and all of that. This is alone about 3.8 trillion. All in all, this is a $6 trillion total addressable market, which is a very, very high, very large market in general. Now, to start with space and SpaceX mainly is very well known for their reusable rockets. You could reuse them again. They land in the perfect way, and not many companies have this technology. I believe Blue Origin was able to do it not long ago, but most companies in general just don't really have this technology. They are well known for the Falcon 9 with 620 flights and a 99% success rate. Then they started out with the Falcon Heavy. This one is about 64 metric tons, much, much heavier. Over 11 flights so far, and a 100% success rate. Then you have recently the Starship V3, which is a massive, massive rocket. This is 100 metric tons, 12 flights so far, and it's still in the testing phase. And this will mainly be used for Starlink satellites, Starlink mobile, AI compute, and a few other things. They mainly have a competitive advantage with the cost efficiency. They can do those loads much, much cheaper than any other space company because they have the reusable rockets. The average launch cost, it was like $18,500. Now they're doing it for like $1,400, and it could potentially be much, much cheaper with the Starship, which is really, really amazing. Now, Starship itself is a game changer product because it doesn't only expand their horizon in terms of potentially AI data centers in space and Starlink and all these things, but they're trying to do something called Earth-to-Earth flights. So whenever you can like go in a rocket, and it sounds crazy, but you can go into those rockets and it flies you, for example, from New York to Paris in 30 minutes. But if you wanted to take a regular flight in an Airbus or Boeing, it takes 7 hours and 20 minutes. This is genius. This is an absolute game changer. But again, that's too ambitious, you could say. It will take a lot of time to approve it and all the regulatory stuff and test it, maybe years and years, maybe 5 to 10 years from now. But this is a massive, massive call option where they could potentially disrupt the airlines, which have been disrupted since forever. You have Boeing and Airbus, and that's it. but they are about to pretty much change the world and change a lot of people's lives. When you can go from Los Angeles to New York in 25 minutes instead of a 5.5 hour flight. I mean, this is a game changer. But again, this is Elon Musk, and this is a massive call option from the company. You also have Starlink, pretty amazing business. I would say SpaceX. Starlink is SpaceX, you could say, because it's by far their most profitable segment. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit. But Starlink is a pretty amazing business. They have a 10.3 million subscribers, and they've been growing at a 105% rate over the last year. A lot of people use Starlink in things like fixed sites, land mobility, maritime, aviation. They signed deals with a lot of the big airlines like the Emirates and Lufthansa and Qatar Airways and United and British Airways and I believe American Airlines as well. But Delta Airlines, for example, it shows Amazon Leo, which Amazon is starting and is trying to compete with SpaceX. Delta Airlines chose Amazon Leo. They said Amazon Leo is much cheaper than SpaceX, and they decided to go with Amazon Leo. So more competition is eventually going to come for SpaceX or in this area and Starlink in general. But of course, there's a dominant force, and they have many more satellites in constellation versus Amazon Leo and any other player is not even close. So this is an amazing business for the company. Then they merged with X.AI. So you're also getting X with 550 million monthly active users, 350 million daily posts. You also have Threads from Meta, which is a stock that I own, but Threads isn't doing really well. The traffic is down like 50% over the last year. And I don't know anyone that uses Threads, to be honest. I mean, I know people on X and people on Instagram, but on Threads, I mean, I never heard that it's something really cool. So, it didn't cost Meta too much to launch it, but I don't think it could really compete with Twitter or X, And then also have the compute kind of business. So they had a lot of extra compute from XAI. They're very efficient as using compute for their training their AI models. So they had some extra compute and they're selling it. They sold 1.2 billion to Anthropic. I believe they also sold Google recently. 920 million per month to supply them with a lot of the compute. So that's a pretty amazing deal for SpaceX. You also have, again, the potential for data centers in space, but I don't really understand this too much, so I'm not going to comment on it. But if there's any company that could potentially do it, it's SpaceX, and it's not even close. Now, looking at the financials, they've been growing revenues rapidly. The revenue is about $4 billion from space, pretty much nothing. Most of the revenue comes from connectivity, which is Starlink. This is a beast. It's about $11 billion. And they have the AI solutions, which was about $1.3 billion. Space isn't really growing rapidly. It's about 8% growth for the company. But the space, you could say, is like the toll bridge for them to sell connectivity, to do the space data centers, to do everything. So it starts with space. Space is a slow business for them. It's not too profitable. It's growing 8%. But then you look at connectivity, it's growing 50% year over year, mainly through consumers, but they also have a lot of enterprise and governments. They're signing contracts with Starlink, so it's been expanding rapidly. You look at EBITDA, 7.2 billion. This is by far the most profitable segment of SpaceX in general. Now, looking at the company's own guidance, now they're growing 33% in revenues. They're saying the future target is significantly higher. I don't know how much higher than 33%, but now they're growing 33%. Okay. They also guided GAAP net income to be 45%. Now, this is very ambitious when you're guiding from negative 26 to positive 45%. This is very, very ambitious, especially if we're talking about compute and all the money they have to spend on research and development and space. So I don't know when this 45% will kick in. Could be, I don't know, in 2035 or 2040. But I'm going to take all those assumptions and price in the best case scenario for 2030. Okay. Now they're generating about $17 billion in revenues. So at a 1.7 trillion valuation, it's trading at a 100 times sales, okay? 100 times sales. So 17 billion in revenues. For the next 5 years, I'm using 33% revenue growth. Now they're growing 33%. They said it's significantly higher, but I don't know how much higher. So I think 33% for the next 5 years. I personally believe it's a reasonable assumption. Okay. Now, all in all, I got about $70 billion in revenues 5 years from now versus the current 17 billion. So this is massive, massive growth on a company. Then we're going to assume that within 5 years, they're going to reach the 45% net income margin. I highly, highly doubt it. But let's, again, just for the sake of the argument, take in the best case scenario. Okay, so we're going to put in the 70 billion and we're going to take in 45% as a net income margin for SpaceX. All in all, we get $31 billion in net income. I'm going to use a 40 multiple, 40 PE, which would be twice the multiple of NVIDIA. NVIDIA is growing revenues 40-50%. It trades at 21 PE. Google is growing rapidly and it has a wide moat and much more profitable. And Google is trading at about 26 or 27 times earnings. So I'm going to assume 40 PE, okay? And we're going to time it by 40 PE for SpaceX, which I think is even optimistic and reasonable. I'm getting about a $1.2 trillion market cap. The current market cap is $1.7 trillion. So if SpaceX grows 33% in revenues every single year for the next 5 years, and they were able to become profitable at a 45% net income margin versus the current negative 26% margin, all those things are really optimistic. Even with all of that, I see 1.2 trillion over the next 5 years. So if I want to double my money today, I have to buy it at half the price. So I can't be paying 1.7 trillion. I can't be paying 1.2 trillion. I have to pay about $630 billion for SpaceX, and SpaceX is IPOing at about $1.7 trillion. So in other words, if SpaceX IPOs at $130 per share, I would have to buy the stock at $60, $65, $70 per share for me to get it double over the next 5 years. That's using 33% revenue growth, using 40 PE, and also using the company going from losing to 26% to making net 45% net income margins. So I believe SpaceX is extremely, extremely overvalued. I'm personally not going to be buying this IPO, and I believe I used reasonable targets. I didn't use 10 PE or 20 PE. I didn't use 10% revenue growth. I'm using the best case scenario, and I'm still not getting 3 or 4 trillion in 5 years. So if I buy it at 1.7, I'm not going to get it double. If I want to get it double, I have to buy it at $600-700 billion market cap, which is about $60-70 per share. So that's my opinion on SpaceX. Hope you enjoyed it. It was not financial advice. If you did enjoy it, please press the like button and maybe consider subscribing. So I'll talk to you in another